He said, one of my greatest joys as a Christian is advocating for Israel and forming alliances to defend Judeo-Christian civilization.
But I'm trying to convey to you that Israel is losing support even in conservative circles. This should be a 5-alarm fire. Our generation was also lied to by the governments of Israel and the US that COVID vaccines were safe and effective. Wow, so he's saying that Israel and their government lied to the world. Charlie's letter now released. The New York Post got their hands on it as an exclusive, and they posted the whole item here for us to read, and we'll do so. We've got it queued up here. It comes from the desk of Charlie Kirk over to the Prime Minister, and there's a lot of details in here about what Charlie was thinking Israel should be doing. And so you can see signed here by the late and great Charlie Kirk. The letter apparently was sent back on May 2nd, and we've been talking a lot about this. In fact, a lot of people have been asking for this letter to be released because people are trying to, of course, figure out what Charlie was thinking in the final days, what his legacy is and will be. And a lot of people are saying that they know what it was and what it is and what his intentions were for the future. And people are trying to understand what's going to happen with Turning Point, a massive organization that obviously carries a lot of political heft in America. And so a lot of duking it out over this letter specifically. Some people saying that Benjamin Netanyahu was misrepresenting the letter and there were calls for him to release it. It has now been released. I don't know if he officially gave it to them or not, but here is what is inside. This comes over from Josh Christensen and David Proper. They say that we got the letter obtained by the Post. Kirk wrote to Netanyahu in a May 2 missive that he was alarmed. He actually called it a 5-alarm fire. Here's a photo of Charlie, looks like over in Israel. And Netanyahu first mentioned the video in a September 18th video address, 8 days after Kirk was shot. And I'm not sure if that's accurate or not. I don't know when this came out, but this guy posted this on September 11th. And we definitely know that Netanyahu made a video about this, but I think he was also on like immediately in the aftermath talking about this. So I don't think it was 8 days after. I think he mentioned it right here. And this video was posted on September 11th, one day after Charlie Kirk was shot and killed. And so this is where I first heard of it from the Prime Minister. And here's what he said immediately after Charlie's death.
Minister, you have your own memories of Charlie Kirk. Please share them.
Well, Harris, before I do that, I have to say that we're just heartbroken. Myself, my wife, my family, my son actually on his 2019 visit to Israel had lunch with him and his wife, Erica. We're shattered first as human beings because a great human being has been taken from us. He was an extraordinary friend. He wrote me a letter on May 2nd this year. He said, one of my greatest joys as a Christian is advocating for Israel and forming alliances to defend Judeo-Christian civilization. A few weeks before the tragedy yesterday, I called him and I spoke to him and I said, please come to Israel. I invited him to Israel. And sadly, that visit will not take place. But he was a defender of our common Judeo-Christian civilization. He was unbelievably excited to walk in the footsteps of Jesus here. He valued our bond, the bond between America and Israel. He did so many things to defend free speech. He had his truth. He stood up for it. But he said, you can come and debate me. He invited that debate.
Yeah, and they shot him in the neck. So I think that was the first instance of this. And that was on September 11th is when we saw that being posted. And he referenced the May 2nd letter. That's the same letter that they're saying that they got their hands on. And again, we don't really know the source of it. It doesn't look like they're going to tell us much on it. Like where'd they get it from? Did it come from the Israelis? Did it come from Charlie's people? Did it come from, an anonymous source? He first mentioned the letter in September 18th video, 8 days, but I don't think that's right. I think that he said it earlier. Right-wing pundit Candace Owens and others have claimed that Kirk was being blackmailed into making firm defenses of Israel, and Pershing Square also published text messages about it. In the letter, Kirk urged Netanyahu to stop subcontracting things out. Lots of quotes from it, but again, don't really know where the letter came from. Finally, he spurred the Israelis to cultivate more first-person conversations, and of course, we know we had the Tyler Robinson hearing. So that's the background on it. Here is what the letter says. From the desk of Charlie Kirk, written May 2nd, 2025, he says, Dear Mr. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, one of my greatest joys as a Christian is advocating for Israel and forming alliances with Jews in the fight to protect Judeo-Christian civilization. More recently, I am proud to have taken over Ambassador Huckabee's show on TBN, where we continually support Israel and the Jewish people. As Muhammadism spreads into Western societies, it's critical that Jews and Christians stay united in the effort to contain and roll back radical Islam and Sharia law. Charlie writes, I regret to report that anti-Israel and anti-Semitic trends are at record levels on social media. These negative sentiments then flow downstream into college campuses and even seep into the conservative MAGA community. My team and I, writes Charlie, have spent months analyzing these trends and debating ideas that could help you and your country push back against these disturbing developments. Anti-Israel sentiment can undermine American support for Israel. The purpose of this letter is to lay out our concerns and outline potential remedies. Everything written here is from a place of deep love for Israel and the Jewish people. I think it's important to be brutally honest with those you love. In my opinion, Israel is losing the information war and needs a communications intervention. He says, I started to compose this letter to you on Easter. I should have been focused on my family, but I was getting bombarded with messages about the Israeli army making it difficult for Christians to access church in Jerusalem on Easter. At the time, I did not see any official statements pushing back on this narrative. It was frustrating because pro-Israel surrogates like me should not be in charge of fact-checking every piece of anti-Israel misinformation that pours into social media. It wasn't just Easter. On my recent campus tours, half the questions I get are about Israel, and they're all negative. I often spend half my time on these campus tours defending Jews and Israel, which I'm proud to do because I love Israel and love the Jewish faith. I spent endless hours with Dennis Prager over the years studying the Torah. Sometimes it feels like I'm defending Israel in public more than your own government. My experience, says Charlie, on college campuses matches a recent Harvard-Harris poll, which reported 48% of 18 to 24-year-old Americans support Hamas over Israel. Even in young MAGA circles, Israel is losing support. We are getting huge crowds of 4,000 to 5,000 students on some of my college tours. My campus visits are becoming like a rock concert atmosphere filled with conservative patriots. Yet on these campus visits, I'm constantly confronted with, Charlie says, I get these questions. Israel is an apartheid state. Why does Israel conduct ethnic cleansing? Why is America subsidizing Israel's genocide against the Palestinian people? Is American aid helping to subsidize Israel's free healthcare? Israel and Jews are running U.S. foreign policy. Israel and Jews are responsible for 9/11. Defending Israel is not in our U.S. national interest. And final question is, why is Israel trying to drag us into a war with the Middle East? Now, above are just a sampling of the negative Israel-Jewish comments that I confront on college campuses. I'm accused of being a paid apologist for Israel when I defend her. However, if I don't defend Israel strongly enough, I'm accused of being anti-Semitic. I know you've got a 7-front war, and my kvetching pales in comparison, but I'm trying to convey to you that Israel is losing support even in conservative circles. This should be a 5-alarm fire, says Charlie Kirk. I'm often asked, why is Israel killing so many innocent civilians in Gaza? I know Israel goes to great lengths by dropping flyers and even calling civilians to clear out of areas about to be bombed. I know Israel posts maps showing which areas should be evacuated. I know that Hamas uses civilians as human shields, but 90% of the younger generations get their news from social media and podcasts, and there is very little pushback or fact-checking by the Israeli government and or pro-Israel supporters in the media, especially social media. I strongly suggest Israel not always depend on subcontracting their information war efforts to surrogates in America. Mr. Prime Minister Benjamin, I urge you to revamp your efforts and your information warfare strategy from top to bottom. Sometimes the impression is given that Israel thinks everyone hates them, so why care about winning over hearts and minds? And I had that same question earlier. I thought, yeah, maybe they don't care so much about what the world thinks, right? If the UN walks out, if, UK, France, Canada, a lot of the Western allies in the Western world are all pushing back against them, maybe they don't care. Maybe it's because they think from their perspective, they're in an existential crisis, and so public opinion be damned. But it is an open question. If there's any truth to this impression, I urge you to consider that social media and podcasts is where you fight for the hearts and minds of the younger generation. Obviously, all this negative Israel propaganda on social media easily translates into pro-Hamas, free Palestine sentiment on many college campuses. So here are some unsolicited recommendations my team, Charlie and I, suggest if you're open-minded to communications to a reset you consider. Here's what he says. Number one, for starters, you need a rapid response media team. President Trump does this very effectively on social media with his own account and the White House Rapid Response 47 team. They are good. The president has strong fighters like Stephen Miller and Caroline Leavitt who battle the press every day. Honestly, I don't even know if you have a press secretary, Ben. You are an eloquent defender of Israel, but you need a team of information warriors out there pushing back every day in real time. When you don't push back, anti-Semitism and anti-Israel propaganda fill the void. A pro-Israel friend recently asked me, do Israelis even care how the world perceives their country? I asked the same thing. Maybe they don't. Again, maybe from their perspective, it's existential. So public opinion versus the survival of your people, one takes a lot higher precedent than the other. I strongly recommend putting together a team of pro-Israel experts who can fact check misinformation in real time time from Israel. Israel needs to take the lead in this effort. No more dependence on subcontractors. Israel never asked for the American troops because Israel does its own fighting. I suggest the same approach for the information war. You lead, and people like me will follow and provide supplemental support. If you're open to revamping your communication strategy, my team and I are happy to assist. So they just have ineffective messengers, perhaps, is what Charlie's saying? You need something perhaps like an Israel Truth Network, the ITN, which can include social media channels and a one-stop source of information website where, for example, all the negative Israel questions I can get can be thoroughly debunked. I would love to refer students to such a website. The website could be a conduit to groups like Hillel and Jewish educators like Dennis Prager. There can be links to books, podcasts, media personalities, pro-Israel thought leaders. The website can be a place where Judeo-Christian leaders and groups can share information and form closer alliances in the fight against Islamic fundamentalism. ITN social media can be pro-Israel, pro-Judeo-Christian video clips, breaking news and articles. ITN could potentially be a news aggregation site for all news pertaining to Israel and Judeo-Christian efforts to preserve Western civilization. And this is interesting. I mean, Charlie obviously was a master at social media, right? He created virality basically everywhere he went. He was a pro at it, like the Michael Jordan of social media. Very excellent at it. So from his perspective, it's just, it's kind of domain dependence. Like if you're very good at one thing, I can solve it with this one thing. It's the same concept when you go and see a doctor. Whatever doctor you see, they're going to find a problem that's within their area of domain. Oh, I don't know. I'm a kidney doctor, so it's probably your kidneys. Oh, I'm a liver doctor. It's probably your liver, right? Or whatever it is. So you just go and they find what they're looking for essentially and fix it. So from his perspective, this is the solution to the problem. He says, have you considered inviting some of the released hostages to go on a speaking tour in the US? This could be very effective messaging. These hostages can talk about how Gazan civilians not once offered any empathy or compassion. Trump referenced this lack of humanity when some released hostages visited the Oval Office. This was effective messaging. When impactful messaging clicks, keep it going. Gotta double down. This format's working. Go, go, go. All these hostages and all your spokespersons should be arguing it's Hamas that's committing genocide on their own people by using civilians as human shields and storing weapons in schools and hospitals, etc. That information drips out in the regular media, but is almost non-existent on social media. He also suggests, from Charlie, maybe interview regular Israelis on the streets. Ask them what they love about their country. Interview Jews, Israeli Arabs, the Druze, Orthodox, secular, etc. Ask Israelis, what do they wish the world knew about Israel? Ask them to respond to examples of misinformation on social media. And this could be an entire social media PR campaign called, Dude, You Got Us Wrong. Interview Israelis from all walks of life, right? Like set up, put some Israelis behind a table. Come talk to me. Ask me anything. I'm an Israeli Jew. Ask me questions about whatever you want. Like Charlie Kirk. Come talk to me. Interview Israelis from all walks of life. Let Israelis explain in their own words how Israel is a pluralistic society, a free country with elected leaders, unlike all of the surrounding authoritarian Arab nations. Why not show how your hospitals take care of wounded terrorists? Why not show clips of Israel dropping flyers from airplanes warning Gazan civilians to stay out of harm's way? It would have been nice to see an Israeli plane with the Star of David arrive in the US full of supplies after a hurricane. It would be nice. Yeah, here's a question Charlie has. Has Israel offered any assistance to the US insofar as technology to protect our border or with the missile defense shield that President Trump has discussed? And man, these are great questions because I've had those same questions. These are examples of effective messaging, showing Israel as a close ally rather than just saying it, right? And this is a theme. If there's anything, that I would say I might point out to Charlie, and may he rest in peace. And, I'm sure he probably didn't think we'd all be reading this letter here, but it's a concept we talk a lot about here. It's attraction versus promotion. And there's a fine line between the two. And, doing attractive things that people can see will draw attention to your cause. And people will say, oh, dang, that's amazing. You're doing something great. But if you're just promoting, or like castigating, that's anti-Semitic. You hate Jews, you hate Jews, you hate Jews. That's not an attractive thing. You're actually trying to promote and censor, and that causes the opposite effect. So show us, right? Do the attractive things, and then that will naturally permeate through social media, is what one would hope. Consumers of social media are aware of the billions in supplies we send to Israel, but they're less aware of what America gets in return. You and your team need to make the argument on social media that Israel is a great friend of America and is vital to U.S. national security. Yeah, and how? I don't know how. Like, how is it vital? And why is it vital? Why should we have another country that is vital to our own national security? Because vital means if you don't have it, you're in trouble. And that's a concern. Why do we have a gap in our own national security such that we need to rely on another nation? And again, I don't care what nation it is. The Brits, the French, the Germans, whatever. If we have to rely on them, if it's critical, then we have a gap in our own intelligence. Israel needs to establish and better portray itself as a member of, quote, Team Humanity. Israel needs to establish a baseline of her identity. To run an effective messaging campaign, you need a clearly defined message. This video should be homegrown from Israel. Exactly what I was just saying. Homegrown from Israel. Okay, it's not promoting something. It's got to be real. What Charlie is saying here is authenticity. In other words, create original content. Videos and visuals feed social media. Keep these edited clips under 1 minute. Post the best ones on the Israel Truth Network. Don't rely on non-Israeli social media influencers to do this. Create them yourselves. And influencers, surrogates like me, can promote this original work and refer people to your social media. Be proactive. Take the lead. Bottom line is Israel needs to learn to fish. Dang. Create your own content and be more self-reliant when it comes to your communication strategy in the world. Now, with point number 6, Iran. Israel could do a better job explaining the Iranian threat. Among the many conservatives who support Israel, there is a concern that America could become entangled in a quagmire. My generation grew up with disasters in Afghanistan and Iraq. We were promised there would be WMDs in Iraq, and that proved to be a lie. Our generation was also lied to by the governments of Israel and the US that COVID vaccines were safe and effective. Wow, so he's saying that Israel and their government lied to the world. Israel intelligence missed the boat on October 7th, and Charlie on the Patrick Bet David podcast asked if there was a stand-down order, but we're asked to trust Israeli intelligence 100%. Yeah, and they can't even tell us exactly what's going on because it's national security and classified and top secret. That Iran is on the cusp of obtaining nuclear weapons. Young conservatives are very skeptical of government proclamations. Yeah, and not so young ones are too. We don't fully trust intelligence assessments. Right now, it seems like Israel is primarily relying on Americans to make the case for attacking Iranian nuclear sites. These arguments get a lot of blowback in MAGA circles. Other than you, Mr. Prime Minister, I see very few Israelis making their case to the media, social media, or podcasts. Many agree with you, myself included, that Iran should not get nuclear weapons. At the same time, I share the concern that America will get sucked into another endless war, costing thousands of American lives. Where are the Israelis who are arguing their case to win over public opinion? Israel should be making its case 24/7 on social media, including long-form English-speaking podcasts and social media channels and websites like the Rapid Response Team and the ITN. He also says a paradigm shift is needed in how Israel presents itself to the world, especially on social media. Perhaps the best way to convey my thoughts here is to think of Israel as a political candidate. In this case, a younger woman who grew up on social media. Who is this candidate and what does she stand for? Right now, there's essentially a massive negative ad campaign spreading on social media. These negative ads are defining this candidate. Political campaigns face this challenge all the time. Many of the PR challenges Israel faces should be looked at through the prism of a political campaign. Like any campaign, the first task, you got to define the candidate. Right now, says Charlie, there is not a one-stop shopping resource where younger people can learn about this candidate. Every candidate has a website and social media. It would be political malpractice to omit these tools, Charlie says. Sorry for the brutal honesty, but Israel's approach to social media is PR malpractice. Your candidate, Israel, should list all of the toughest questions she gets on the campaign trail with detailed expert responses with footnotes on her ITN website and use social media to explain her platform on a daily basis. These responses become part of Miss Israel's platform, where her positions and values are explained. Like any political campaign, you need surrogates who can articulately promote this candidate's platform and identity. Right now, Israel's identity is being fabricated by those who hate her by a barrage of misinformation in the media, especially social media. Fake news becomes real news if there's not effective pushback. When a candidate is hit with negative campaign ads, the effective response is for the candidate to personally respond to these attacks. A candidate doesn't just rely on surrogates to get the truth out. One of Israel's biggest, most fundamental problems is typically your pushback is in the third person voice. I do the third person voice all the time as I attempt to defend the candidate, Israel, but I don't live in Israel. So I'm more like an attorney defending a client. Israel, the client, needs to defend itself. I wish I had a first person source of information I could reference where students in Israel, skeptics, could learn more about this client called Israel. You need a one-stop shopping resource where Israel's platform and beliefs can be spelled out. You need more Israeli surrogates speaking out on behalf of their candidate. At the moment, you have some wonderful non-Israeli surrogates speaking on behalf of a candidate, but has not defined herself, especially when it comes to social media. I know it's common to think that social media, especially TikTok, is a waste of time. I thought a similar thing a year ago, but TikTok algorithms have changed. I have increased my followers on TikTok from approximately 1 million to 6.6 million in the last year. We get billions with a B views on TikTok. My campus tour last fall and spring have received approximately 5 billion impressions. Elon Musk is a good friend to Israel, so X offers a great opportunity to make inroads on social media. Israel should not sit back and allow its enemies to define her. A recent Pew Research poll shows 53% of Americans now have an unfavorable view of Israel, up from 42% 3 years ago. Yeah, and that number, I just saw a new New York Times poll that is confirming that. That number is largely made up of the left. The right has dropped about 10% in support of Israel from like the 70s to the 60s, but the left has just cratered. A recent Pew Research poll shows it's not looking good in terms of the trajectory. U.S. support for Israel is precarious right now. A new media strategy is urgently needed, and he said this back in May. I understand social media as well as anyone in the world. He does, no question. From my vantage point, Israel has retreated from social media without a fight. How are you going to win over younger generations if you're starting out in retreat on social media? Younger generations use their TVs for Netflix, not the evening news. Narratives for younger and even middle-aged people are fought now on social media. Mr. Prime Minister, stop this retreat. Get in the information war fight! Exclamation point. The front lines of this information war are on social media. Other than a few guerrilla warfare operations, there's very little Israel-created content. I saw that Israel has increased its Hasbara budget by 20 times, which is great news. There's also hundreds of millions of dollars raised by private pro-Israel groups. Some of this money should be directed into creating pro-Israel, original, homegrown content. Next, promote this content on Israel-operated social media channels and website. Use some of these funds to start the Israel Truth Network. Charlie continues. He says, to sum up, Prime Minister, you should perhaps consider reshaping your Hasbara department into more of a political campaign headquarters with campaign narrative experts. Hasbara could be the mothership hosting ITN, where the messaging campaign can be created and then distributed to all the pro-Israel groups and thought leaders. Majority of staff in these efforts should be in their 20s and 30s. The older generation alone is not going to win the information war on social media. You need to fill the ranks with young people who grew up with cell phones and social media, not payphones and TV news. Once the candidate is defined with a platform backfilled with extensive details, then allow the political operatives to take that platform out into social media with an out-of-the-box approach like some of the earlier suggestions. I've seen your IDF spokesman defend Israel standing at a dimly lit podium. It looks like a scene out of the 1970s, like some old Walter Cronkite clips of the TV news. You need to tear down your old ways of communicating and start over from scratch. Create a communications and social media platform that is wired to fight back with the same fierceness and determination as the IDF. Israel has many Americans and some well-known foreigners who defend Israel, which is great, but these are third-person voices. Mr. Prime Minister, you are an eloquent defender of Israel, but you don't post very often on social media. Charlie calling him out. Many of your clips are in Hebrew only. Why don't you do more press conferences in Israel in English? Take on some of the tough questions I get bombarded with on college campuses. Where are all the Israeli surrogates? I can't remember the last time I saw an Israeli spokesperson on one of the evening Fox shows other than yourself. Israel needs more first-person voices to defend her! Exclamation. How can Israel defend and define itself if you don't even have a spokesperson out there fighting back every day? Do you have a press secretary like Caroline Levitt? Do you have defenders like Stephen Miller? If not, I encourage you to go find them. You need more Israeli spokespersons who are effective speakers in the media and on social media. I know you also have a serious deep state lawfare challenge. My team and I have been fighting the deep state every single day for many years. Maybe a revamped information war strategy can help with your internal fights as well. Israel has enormous capabilities, such as how you orchestrated your beeper bomb operation. Perhaps Israel can use some of that same ingenuity to effectively fight the information war in the media, especially on social media. He says, Israel is the Silicon Valley of the Middle East, and Israel has an abundance of brain power and technological expertise. The question is whether Israel has the willpower to step up its game in this information war. From my vantage point, the status quo is not working. Israel is getting crushed on social media, and you are losing younger generations of Americans, even among MAGA conservatives. In my opinion, you are losing the information war, which will eventually translate into less political and military support from America. He says, the Holy Land is so important to my life, and it pains me to see support for Israel slip away. Feel free to contact me on my private number below if you would like to discuss this further. Sincerely, Charlie Kirk. And man, that is a heck of a letter. And Charlie really had a handle on social media and I would say persuasion online. And he makes a lot of very good points that I would like to have answers to, in particular about our alliance and the details about the vital interests that we have alongside each other and what those are specifically. Now, I do think that Charlie is on the target when he says that it needs to be authentic and real. It needs to be coming for them. And it needs to be, genuine and factual in a way that is easily consumable, that they can, transmit to a bunch of people. But if it's just pure promotion and there's no deeper explanation behind it, and it also, Charlie really didn't address this, but if it's also people who are calling Charlie anti-Semitic or Megyn Kelly anti-Semitic are actually, what we've seen from Megyn Kelly, alienating people who are strongly aligned with Israel and saying that people like Tucker Carlson should not be invited to certain events and all of those things. I think that that is also another big fissure. In other words, people who are already predisposed to be aligned with Israel are now being pushed away from Israel because if you're not 100% pro-Israel, if you're like 99 or 95% or 90% pro-Israel, for some, that's not good enough. And then the attacks come against people and they move more towards the other side because they're being attacked. They believe unfairly for having criticisms of a foreign government. So now, we'll see where this goes, but the letter has been released and I'm sure both sides will declare victory on it. I'm sure many people will say, see, we told you, Charlie loves Israel. And then other people will come back and say, well, see, Charlie had questions for Israel or had, some things that he wanted to be clarified. And he was hinting that things were on a downward trajectory and he wanted to reverse that and that we need answers on a lot of things. So we'll, of course, keep our eye on this one, see what the reaction looks like. But this came from the desk of Charlie Kirk. And regardless of your position on Israel or Palestine or wherever you stand on it, I think we can agree that Charlie Kirk was a deep thinker, a very wise man, well beyond his years, and we lost a really great person in Charlie.